We did have one other departure. It was named Drew Doyle. He was he was a long snapper here. Um, it's kind of one of those. Long snapper, but he's is what it is. Uh, don't really have too much to give on too much insight to give on long snapper transfers, but we did have a couple commits last week. One guy we talked about last week, as visiting Iowa State. We thought had a pretty there was a pretty good shot he would come to Iowa State. Was Austin Barrett, who last week did indeed commit to the Cyclones, as I had hypothesized. And I think most people thought that was a pretty good chance that that would happen. His brother Dylan plays at Iowa State. He's got good size. This is a guy that he's got a tackle body that could step in and potentially be in the mix right there at tackle right away. So it's a natural fit for Iowa State. Iowa State's got a number of players out of the Chicago area as well. So this makes a lot of sense. And this was a good get to replace one of the Helton twins that you did lose last week in the portal. And Iowa State also got a commitment from another lineman in Derek Jensen. So suddenly you have two young guys that have not played a whole lot. But you thought they might be in the rotation or might be in the mix anyways, and you lose them to the portal, and then you replace them with arguably two better players that are more equipped to jump in right away. Now, Derek has not played, and he hasn't played a lot of college football or anything like that. He's still a young guy. But came out as a borderline 4-star prospect, one of the best linemen in Wisconsin. Came in, he transferred from Wisconsin. He played at Arrowhead High School, which this is kind of some college football sicko knowledge, but Arrowhead is one of the best programs in the state of Wisconsin. They are Wisconsin's Dowling, Southeast Polk, that kind of thing. They are that for the state of Wisconsin. It's an exceptionally good football program. They have produced a lot of good NFL players. Don't quote me on this one, but I believe Iowa State alumni AJ Klein is from Arrowhead as well. So good football pedigree there. Great size, 6'6", 314 is an awesome size. I think when you have Derek Jensen and Austin Barrett coming in, those are two guys that will immediately compete for a spot in the if not on the starting group, very quickly on the in the main rotation. I believe we'll see those guys figure in right away. And I would argue that this is an upgrade for Iowa State, from the Helton twins. That's not to knock the Helton twins, but they're still very young, and one of them was ahead of the other one, I should say. And, like I said, don't want to knock either of them. But, these are two guys. You have you replace two, guys that are potential developmental players that might figure into the rotation to two guys that can immediately come in and factor into the rotation, potentially into the starting lineup. Overall, that's a good swap for Iowa State. That's a nice upgrade on the offensive line. And suddenly now you have most of your offensive line. If you assume that Derek Jensen and Austin Barrett are going to be, if you assume that they're starters, which maybe you can't assume that yet, but let's assume that Derek Jensen and Austin Barrett are starters. You've got those two. You've got Dylan Barrett, and you've got Tyler Miller on there, and then really you're just looking, and then probably Brendan Black. Maybe. Maybe, I don't know. It depends on what Derek Jensen can do. If they want to put him at a tackle spot, or if they think he's more of a guard, or I don't know. Maybe they think he can be a center. 6'6" is pretty big to be a center. Maybe they think Brendan Black can be a center because he's a little bit smaller. Either way, you've got 4 linemen, potentially 5 linemen right there that you can be like, okay, these guys can immediately be in the running to take the starting snaps. And then you've also got, you've got James Neal on there, and you've got Jared Hufford, or sorry, not Jared Hufford, Jim Boniface. You've got Jim Boniface in there. So you've got 7 guys in there that have started games, have played a lot of snaps, or will be in the rotation there. So, I mean, those 7 guys, if you can find a really good 5 out of those, I think that's a decent group that you can put together a decent line with. Now, I will not fall into the trap of being the type of person that hypes up Iowa State's offensive line in the offseason in April and May and saying that they're going to be the best offensive line of the Campbell era. I will not do that. We've all made that mistake one too many times, and it was only correct one time, as it can only be. Right. That it's the line has been inconsistent at best since 2020, and we always get this in the offseason where this could be the best line of the Campbell era. They've really made great strides. They've done this and this, and sometimes they're fine, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. And it's been mostly marked by inconsistency and a lack of push in the running game. Now, Ryan Clanton's been in the room for a while now. He's been the position coach for the offensive line for this would be his third season, I believe. This is when you can really start seeing. I think you can really start seeing the fruits of your labor with this. In that, Brendan Black came in and played as a true freshman. Because he was one of Clanton's guys, and came in and played as good as you can really ask a true freshman to play. And he was fine last year. Needs to grow some more, but now he's in his third year in the program, and Brendan can take a huge step forward, especially like in pass protection. And if he can do that, this is proof of concept that Ryan Clanton's got the juice for the offensive line. This is it's a proof of concept that his developmental program works, that his mentality of just being more physical than everybody else. It's proof that is an effective strategy at the Power 5 level. We know it was really good at UNI at the FCS level. Now we're going to get the proof of concept at the Power 5 level. And, part of it is recruiting. Part of it is hoping guys pan out. You would have liked the Helton twins to pan out. Fortunately, you've got replacements for them in the portal, which is good. But now you need to see, the year-ish that you spent developing the Helton twins is now down the toilet. So you lost that developmental time that could have been applied to somebody else. But, you did gain the developmental time from Wisconsin, Indiana that they put, the time and effort they put into Derek and Austin, but does their developmental, does the hours that they spent developing Austin and Derek at their respective former programs, do those hours, are they a one-to-one effectiveness in your own scheme? How well do they fit in what you're trying to do with the offensive line? That's the big question. They've had a history of bringing in offensive line that have been good. Obviously, Jalen Travis was excellent last year, and he came in as a fifth-year senior. Now, is that a guy like that easier to bring in since you'd recruit him out of high school, but then he was also came from Princeton. He's a really smart guy, really talented guy that you could probably plug into just about any system and he'd be pretty good. Was that kind of the case with him, and he was just always going to work, or do these things take time and we just got to wait for one or both of these guys to click? You would assume that Austin Barrett has a decent shot at clicking because his brother played well last year. Dylan played well and can help his brother more quickly adapt to Iowa State's system, to their blocking scheme. You would assume that transfer and that whole acclimation process is made easier having a brother there, but it remains to be seen. Sometimes some guys just, the light doesn't come on when they get to a new system. It just happens. Isaiah Alston is a good example of that, where he maybe just spent too much time at Army and in the triple option and just never really got a hold of a more wide open spread type offense that runs air raid concepts. Maybe the air raid receiver concepts just never really clicked for him. The catches he had in the Miami game were mostly deep balls down the sideline, stuff like that, where he could just kind of run in a straight line and go get it. So maybe that was his deal. Sometimes, the light just never came on for him. And sometimes that happens. And that's okay. It's not every guy has to fit into every system. But you hope that at least one of Derek and Austin, but obviously ideally both, should be able to integrate into Iowa State system and become a big factor in this rotation and in this starting lineup as we get through spring and get into fall camp. I would assume that these guys are probably not partaking in spring practices. I don't know that for sure, but I guess I would assume that they are not. but they would be here for spring work for summer workouts. So, obviously, overall, I think this is a really nice couple of grabs for Iowa State on the offensive line, to replace the Helton twins and really, frankly, to get an upgrade there and to immediately inject two guys into the roster that come from, Derek Jensen's obviously coming from a very good program in Wisconsin that has a history of kicking out good offensive linemen. And, Austin coming from an Indiana program that was very, very good last year. So a lot of hope there. I think there's reason to be optimistic. We'll just have to see and hope that this all works out for Iowa State. So a couple of nice grabs there in the portal for Iowa State.